Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of the Hilltop Sports Report. We're focusing on volleyball, Cornell Rams volleyball, in this episode of the podcast. We thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jumpin Jack Carlson, your host, and I'm joined this episode by senior outside hitter Ilah Perez-Johnson. So without further ado, let's hit the music and start the show.
Let's go Rams! Let's go Rams!
So this is our second episode of the year. In episode 1, we focused on football. We had John Smith on, and thanks again to John for stopping by the Academic Technology Studio. And so, as I mentioned a moment ago, Ilah Perez-Johnson joins me in studio. She's had a fantastic start to her senior season. And kind of starting things off, Ilah, first of all, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
And what happened this weekend? All sorts of energy inside the gym there in Illinois. Fantastic weekend. So catch up fans on what happened with the Rams volleyball team in their 3-0 weekend.
Yeah, so Friday we took on Aurora, which was a 5-set match, which was crazy to start off the season that way. We went down 1-0, lost the first set, and I don't know, we just kind of had a different fight in us. I feel like we started off a little shaky because their tempo was really fast, but once we started to make those adjustments throughout the game, we started to get more comfortable, and we just meshed really well that game. That was a really big win for us. And then second day we took on McAllister, first game, finished that one pretty good. Yeah, we went into Chicago, which we knew that would be a tough matchup. They were pretty good last year, so we went down 2-0. And then, after that, we were kind of like, oh, okay, what are we going to do now? That's a really tough position to be in. And then we just, again, had a different fight in us and took on the third, took on the fourth, and then the fifth set was a really, really challenging set. So I'm just really proud of our fight. That was just crazy. I can't think of another word other than that. And we just, everybody did their part on the team. So that was really cool.
That's great. And kind of touching on that. So last year, earlier in the season, the Rams kind of struggled to find their groove, right? And so this year, it seems like, at least through the first 3 games, there's a little bit of a different feel about this team. So kind of identify that if you could. What is it about this team that's different from your previous 3 years?
I just think in this preseason, we took it really seriously. We kind of set those standards early on with Coach Meeker, and as a team, like by ourselves, we talked about it and we were like, hey, what do we want to achieve this year? And what are we going to do to make sure that we can get there? Is everybody going to do their part? And I think that's something that we set really early. So that made this weekend just so much of a different experience and a different environment because everybody knew I'm such an important part of this team. So I think that's something that's a little bit different because it's hard having a varsity team and a JV team. There, that feel of that separation can be there. But I feel like this year we're really cracking down on, no, we're one team. You guys are just as much a part of the win as the people on the court. Everybody, I think, just has that feeling of wanted and I want to do my part kind of vibe, I guess.
So for you personally, so you're moving into more of a leadership role this year as a senior. How have you seen your individual abilities change? And then how are you balancing that this year, stepping into that senior leader, trying to be the voice that players on the team listen to?
I think starting off my freshman year, that was COVID year, so that was a really different experience for me. I'm pretty sure I was the only freshman starting on that team, so I think having that kind of under my belt going on to these next few years, it really helped me know my role a little bit better, and I think Coach Meeker does a really good job of that. Like, if he'll take me into his office and he's like, hey, we need more of this from you, we need more of this, so I think that kind of helps me set the tone for this is like what I need to do, what I can help other people with, what they need.
So your first home game is upcoming, if that made any sense, on Wednesday evening, hosting Dubuque. So what excitement level do you have to get back in the SAW with those rowdy Ram fans supporting the Rams? What are you looking forward to this week specifically, kicking off the home slate?
Yeah, I'm honestly just really excited and really looking forward to that environment again. The Ram fam, they always show up and are super loud and super supportive, even to our scrimmage. Last week, we had a good showings. I don't know, I think it'll just be a lot of fun. And we really set the tone last week or this past weekend for what we're expecting as a team. And I think we can really carry that over and not get too over our heads about it, but just know that we're going to be a really competitive team and we're going to be playing a lot of really, really tough teams. I think just maintaining that composure and maintaining the excitement and all of that all into one, that'll really help us this coming up week with these games.
So let's go back to that tricky schedule. So Coach Meeker made it a focal point for himself to go out and schedule a tricky schedule for this team. And so what does that do for you as a player, knowing that you've got a lot of tricky games upcoming this season? Does that excite you? Does that terrify you a little bit? Are you kind of in the middle? Where are you at in terms of approaching this schedule for this 2023 campaign?
Yeah, I mean, when Meeker first told us about our schedule, we were kind of like, oh, okay, like this is going to be fun. And then once rankings came out, we were like, oh, okay, this is going to be serious, and we're really going to be playing some super tough teams. So I think as players, we really were a little bit nervous, but I really think that this past weekend, it just really set the tone for us. And honestly, now I'm just really excited to play Dubuque. They're a really good team. Whitewater again. They're a really tough team. Illinois College, that'll be they're in our conference, but it'll be a fun environment. And then Northwestern, our last game on Saturday, they're really, really high in the rankings. So I think that'll just really a good battle for us to go at.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit. This past summer, so this team has a different type of chemistry about them. Obviously, the freshmen didn't go with on the trip overseas to Europe, but kind of touch on the importance of that trip for team chemistry and things of that nature, the intangibles going into this season, feeling like perhaps it's a tighter team than in past years.
Yeah, so we only ended up playing 3 games in Spain and Portugal. So I think taking that time away from volleyball as a team, that wasn't the only thing on our minds. We weren't super stressed about it. And we just really got to enjoy each other's company and really got to learn a lot more about each other. I know last year's freshman class I wasn't super close with throughout the season just because it was a different environment for them. So it was just really hard for us to mesh. But as we got into spring season and then this trip, I felt like I became such great friends with all of them, and I think as a team it just really helped us bring in the incoming freshmen too. Know that we can just start inviting people more into conversations and start just creating those special bonds that we wanted early on last year but we couldn't necessarily get to. So I think this trip really helped out with that.
That's fantastic. And who wouldn't like the opportunity to go see Maroon 5 in concert? I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So you mentioned the freshman class a moment ago. Touch on them for a little bit and what your expectations are for Nia Howard and others who are entering this team with a lot of buzz entering this 2023 season. So kind of speak about them for a second.
All of them really bring a bunch of talent to this team. That's a really special group. And, Nia, she did really great this past weekend. She really stepped into a really important role for us, being both her and Claire were both of our setters. And I feel like Nia really took that with confidence and really filled in some big shoes. So we're really excited about her and what she's going to do for this team. And, all the other freshmen, Kenzie Stats, Brooke, Briley, Emma Hooper, even like all of them are just such great aspects of this team. And they're really in practice now is honestly just such a different environment because of them. They provide so much energy, so much talent, so much effort, honestly. So that's really special to have on the court with us. And in practice, we're the ones playing against them. They get the opportunity to challenge us, and the battles and practice in preseason were just insane. So that was really cool.
And I think that was put on display in the scrimmage because generally sometimes, the varsity kind of runs away from the JV, but they were tooth and nail throughout that match. And so that was really encouraging to see that it's a really deep team loaded at pretty much every position. So from the freshman now to all the way, the elder stateswoman of the Rams, Grace Marty. So what does she bring to the team? All sorts of experience in college and just those intangibles that she brings. How do you work with her as a leader on this team? And what are you looking for her to do in her 5th year?
We all love Grace so much. She's such an important part of this team. And I think she just really brings that sense of belonging. If you look at Grace, she'll immediately want to talk to you about something. She'll immediately want to invite you in on conversations, ask you how your day is, simple things like that. She does a really great job of just making everybody feel super included. So I think apart from volleyball, that's just such a big thing that she brought to this team was with Grace, you just feel like you can go to her about anything. So I think that sense of trust in her on and off the court is is a really big part of why she's such a special person. Her as a leader, I mean, I just said you can go to her about anything and you can honestly trust her to put a ball away no matter what. This past weekend, she had an incredible weekend, and I still mind blown about that just because all of her swings were insanely good. And if it wasn't a kill, they were getting the other team out of system. And I mean, half of them were kills. She had 18 kills in her game against Chicago, and that just really set the tone for Grace and her this upcoming season for her and how we can utilize her more this year.
Absolutely. And not to be overshadowed, you had 18 kills on Friday, so let's put that on the record as well. So these senior leaders are stepping up for the Rams, and you mentioned that freshman class from last year taking a step forward here into their sophomore years. So Carly Puffer had a fantastic game on Friday evening. So what has Carly done this past offseason to improve her game, and what are you looking for her to do taking that next step here in year 2?
I know in high school she originally played in the middle position, and we were fortunate enough to have Rory Light last year, which she was incredible. So Carly had to kind of fill the shoes in a different position, which was kind of hard for her at first, but I think she definitely filled those shoes and was outstanding in that spot. But coming back this year, this is really where she shines, and I think all of the sophomores now have a year under their belt. So that confidence level is completely different, knowing their role is completely different. But I think them having the year under their belt is a really important part of what showed this past weekend with Ella McLaughlin, Ella Becker, both of them, or all three of them. They were just incredible this past weekend. So you can just really see how much effort they put in this off season last year during spring season. It just really showed how much they worked and how much they want this for the team.
One more area that I want to dive into on this Rams roster. Got a huge transfer kind of late into the summer. A big pickup for the Rams. Kiana Manson checking into the program, and unfortunately she got hurt in one of the scrimmages. But what are you excited to see her do this year once she hopefully sooner rather than later comes back from that hand injury?
I mean, when she was not hurt and during preseason, you could just tell there was a completely different atmosphere on the court. She brought so much energy, so much power. She was just so helpful for everybody in every position. So I think that's something that she's going to bring back. You know, this past weekend, she really helped everybody on the bench, on the court, find those open spots, give them that confidence again if there was an error made. And she honestly brought the benchergy this weekend. We call that benchergy. She is just such a loud girl, so loud, just so awesome. So we're really excited to have her back on the court sooner rather than later, but we know that she's taking this off time seriously and just kind of fixing out those kinks that she had for. So
one more transfer that I want to dive into before we go into the coaching staff, because of course can't have you on without talking about Coach Meeker. Mm-hmm. So Helena Hilliard, she's had a very interesting story, tale of perseverance, really. And so what do you see out of Helena just battling not only on the court, but also off the court with her health challenges and the toughness that it requires for her to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I knew Helena in high school. I don't think she knew me, but I always knew of her just because she was an incredible athlete in high school, and we played at the same volleyball club for, I think, only 1 year. But Helena is just honestly such a strong person to have on this team. She brings that sense of, again, like Grace does, like that belongingness. She'll always go out of her way to ask you how her day is. If there's somebody random that's standing next to us in line, she'll make that effort. Hi, what's your name? So I think having her and her attitude that she brings on the court as well is just so great. And I know it's been hard for her to kind of get back into things. If you have a lot of time off from volleyball, your approach, it feels completely different. Swinging at the ball feels completely different, even if it's just for a month off of volleyball. So I can't imagine what she had to do to kind of get back to where she is right now. But I just know that she's just such a hard worker, and you can just see that she wants this, and she wants to learn, and she wants to know what she's doing wrong, and she wants to know if she gets it right. So I think she's just a really good aspect of this team. And even Coach Meeker, he kind of set the tone at the beginning of the season and said, we can do hard things. So I think that's something really important for Helena, and she knows that I can do hard things, and all of us, we know we can do hard things. But Helena's just so special, and she brings the power to the court. When she gets a good swing, it's a really good swing or a really good block. She came up big this weekend, came in, got a few touches on the block, got a few blocks for us when we really needed them. So that was really awesome to see.
And kind of what we said earlier on in the podcast, this team is loaded, and Helena is a huge member of this team in terms of providing depth And as you said, just great energy. So that's exciting that the Rams were able to pick her up for this season. Transitioning over to the coaching staff. Jeff Meeker, the all-time winningest coach in Cornell history. Let me say that again. Jeff Meeker is the all-time winningest coach in any sport at Cornell. He is the living GOAT.
Literally.
So Ilah, kind of speak about just the special attitude that Coach Meeker brings each and every day.
Whenever I was recruited, I went to an exposure camp over here in Cedar Rapids, actually, and Coach Meeker saw me and he reached out to me by email and he was like, hey, do you want to come over for a visit? And I was like, I mean, sure, he was the first coach that had honestly reached out to me about anything. And as soon as I got on campus and as soon as I was talking to him, he was just I could just see him being my coach. Meeker, he has a very different coaching philosophy than what I've seen in high school. And I'm so happy that I chose here because that just works so well for me. And you can just see how it's helped me throughout the years with my progress. So he's been a really big part of my life on and off the court. I feel like I can go to him about anything. And it may sound weird, but all of us, we see Coach Meeker as like a dad. I played with Sydney since my sophomore year and then having her as a coach. So whenever he will talk to her or something, we're like, oh, we kind of feel like we're his daughters too. And he actually mentioned in practice last week, he was like, you know, you guys all care about each other so much. You're like sisters. So really we see this team as one big family. And, you know, if he gets mad at us, it's not like, oh, shoot, he got mad at us. It's more of a disappointing feeling. And we don't want to make him feel disappointed. So I think that's just what pushes us to be so much better and want to go for more balls and want more swings in the court and stuff like that. But yeah, for me, he's really helped me and my mental part of the game too. I think he's just been a really important aspect of my improvement throughout the years.
All right, so you've given some great stuff here in this episode, but we would be remiss if we did not ask you, are you coming back for a fifth year? Because last year on the podcast, Grace Marty said, okay, I'm coming back. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Rory and Olivia to come back for fifth years. That was kind of a crushing blow.
Yeah.
Going to be real with you on that.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, so this is your senior year at Cornell. What are you looking for after college, after volleyball?
Yeah, so me and Meeker have had that conversation before pretty early on. So I think maybe soon we'll have another one just to kind of see where we're at with things. But as of now, I think I'll come back for a fifth year. I'm pretty confident with that. You know, my freshman year, we only played 4 matches, so I feel like I didn't really get the full 4 years of Cornell volleyball. And this team is just so special, so I would, of course, want to come back for them.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you out on the court along with the rest of your sisters, the Rams, on Wednesday night here in Mount Vernon. So make sure to come out to the SAW and support. 7:30 is the varsity match against Dubuque, and if you want to check out the very loaded junior varsity team, that match starts at 5:30 inside the SAW. So thank you very much, Ilah, for stopping by on this episode of the Hilltop Sports Report.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so that does it for episode 11. We thank you very much for tuning in. Stay tuned to the Cornell Rams social media platforms, as well as me on Twitter at JumpinJack123 for updates as to when episode 12 of the podcast will drop. Once again, a special thank you to Ilah Perez-Johnson for stopping by on this episode of the podcast. My name is Jumpin Jack Carlson saying, I'll see you next time.